I'm Mike Vardy, and this is the Productivityist podcast. On this episode of the Productivityist podcast, I'd like to welcome Rob Jacobs to the show. Rob is a leader in the Walking for Health movement. Back in 1986, he, the former fitness instructor, founded the Walking Center, which pioneered the use of motorized treadmills to pace people, making walking an effective form of exercise. And today, he's the co-founder of Unsit, which is a company that created the first ever treadmill you can use under your standing desk at work. We talked about the power of working while standing, while walking. Lots of great stuff. As you know, there are a lot of productivity benefits and a lot of productivity surveys and studies that are attached to the idea of standing while working. I have a standing sitting desk myself. And so we dive into that, a bunch of other things as well. I can't wait to share this conversation with you. So let's just get to it. Here's my conversation with Rob Jacobs here on the Productivityist podcast. I'd like to welcome Rob Jacobs to the Productivityist podcast. Rob, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, honored to be on. I've listened to some of your past episodes. It's a great program you're offering.
So, for this particular episode, I made the point of raising my standing desk. I've got a Vera desk at home. It took me, I'm a big desk junkie in the first place. So for me, I had to have the perfect workstation. I ended up finding an IKEA desk that fit perfectly in this little office that I have, but there was no room for a standing desk. So I bought a Vera desk. But there's the one thing that I'm missing. I have a fit desk too, by the way. It's in the living or in the rec room area, but I'm missing something in particular. And this is what you're part of. It's the treadmill desk. I want to. What got you into Unsit? And that's where we're gonna dive into that. What got you into the idea of building the treadmill desk? Because obviously they're quite popular nowadays. And my friend AJ Jacobs used it when he was writing Drop Dead Healthy. What got you into the idea of making a treadmill desk that actually is independent and can be used under pretty much any desk?
Yeah, well, it's sort of a long journey. I'll take it from the beginning if you want to go through the whole story. I was in the health and fitness business all my adult life, really. I studied exercise physiology in college. Got one of the first fitness instructors certificate from UCLA. Back in the late 80s, went into the health and fitness education business and then started retailing exercise equipment. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was selling high-end motorized treadmills for people to walk on at home. And my idea of a fitness program back then, I was trying to basically tone it down from the high-intensity aerobics workouts that were popular at the time. And I found that if you just walked at a moderate pace, a slight incline, and you watched a movie for an hour, you would get great results from a fitness point of view. So I had a store in Beverly Hills called the Walking Center, and the Walking Center specialized in just that. People would come in. I had a library of movies on videos back in those days. You plug in a video, watch the movie for an hour or two. This was mostly stay-home housewives in Beverly Hills, and they were getting great results, losing weight, feeling fit, not having to break a big sweat or have any aches and pains from injuries. The program became so popular, people started buying the treadmills for home. So I became quickly one of the largest retailers of high-end treadmills for homes and fitness centers. And fast forward up to today, I've had a lot of experience with exercise equipment, specifically treadmills. And a man a lot of your listeners may know of by the name of Nolan Bushnell. Nolan was the founder of Atari. He was interested he came to me and said, can we build a treadmill for this stand-up desk? So he's just like your situation. He got the stand-up desk, but he found he couldn't stand that long. His legs started to get achy. He just can't stand still too long. But the typical treadmills that people have been putting under desks are just basically the same size and shape as a fitness treadmill out of a gym. It's a long, narrow, skinny contraption. It's engineered to run at, so for fast speeds. And for an office environment to be under a desk, it really needs to be much wider so you can use the whole width of your desk. And it needs to be shorter so you're not taking up a lot of space behind your desk. And then the engineering of the motor and so forth needs to be set up so it runs very smooth and quiet at slow speed. So we did all those things, and we added some other features to the product that I'll tell you about. But it was motivated largely out of a personal friend asking me to customize a treadmill for him, and I realized this is a great idea. I had heard of Dr. James Levine, who wrote a book called Get Up. He's sort of considered the the grandfather of this whole movement, no pun intended. And Dr. Levine's book came out about 8 years ago now, and he's Dr. Levine is the leading researcher in obesity. He runs the obesity clinic at the obesity research at the Mayo Clinic. And he's been studying movement for all of his professional life, and he's found that the less people move, the more health problems they have. That's an 8-word summary of the whole book. But people should look for that book. We've got it on our website. It's on Amazon. And when I had read that book, that really motivated me. I realized, boy, this sitting thing is huge. I had poo-pooed it originally, Mike, because my background is fitness and exercise, and I thought, how can walking slowly at your desk do anything from a fitness point of view? And it turns out it does a tremendous amount from a fitness point of view, and it increases productivity, which is, I know, your topic, and it increases people's their thinking power, their creativity. It has a whole bunch of other positive side effects that are so valuable that I just got really excited about it, and I realized what this guy Levine is saying is extremely profound. So I built a treadmill desk for myself. I started out I took an old fitness treadmill, put a piece of plywood on it. And I just started experimenting. That was my first treadmill desk. And of course, the ergonomics were terrible. I had to build the height up and change things around. But over the course of a few months of tinkering around with my own version of a treadmill desk, which I slowly migrated from a sitting desk. And one day I looked back and I realized all the stuff that used to be on my sitting desk, my computer, my phones, my pencils and pens and paperwork and stuff, I had slowly migrated it over to the treadmill desk, and I was on there all the time. And I looked back one day and I thought, I'm never using that thing again. And I listed my Herman Miller Aeron chair on eBay. I sold it the next day to some poor soul who's probably still sitting in it. And I've been using a treadmill desk ever since. So that was my personal experience. And one other anecdote to this, but back in the late 1990s, I got my first desk job. I had sold my retail business, and I was working for the Pritikin Longevity Center here in Santa Monica. We ran a health and fitness program mainly for sick people who had diabetes and heart disease. But I ended up having to sit at the desk a lot of hours, and I hated it because I'd always been outdoors in fitness and exercising, and now I was sitting behind the desk doing spreadsheets and writing reports. And so I fashioned a stand-up desk back then, and I lasted about a month. And the reason I only lasted about a month is I find you just can't stand still that long. When your legs are still and not moving, they get achy. You get an achy sensation. You have to move around. And I'm sure with the Varidesk, which is a great product, by the way, we've got a lot of people who use the Varidesk with our treadmill. But after a while, you want to move your legs. So there's a lot of solutions to that. And the treadmill is an expensive one, but a really good one. I'm walking during this interview. In fact, I've already clicked off nearly 1,000 steps, just you and I talking thus far. But it's really just about keeping your legs moving so you don't have to sit back down, because the ill health effects of sitting are so profound. So
meal planning is important because it prevents us from being a disappointed wreck when dinner time comes around and we have no clue what to make, or even if we have the ingredients to make the meal. It's a time and a money saver, but most importantly, it frees up valuable brain space. Creating a meal plan prepares us for the week to come and gives us peace of mind that we're organized and can feed ourselves and our family. That's why I do it, and that's why Plan to Eat helps me do it. Your subscription includes access to the Plan to Eat website and fully featured mobile apps on iOS and Android. And Plan to Eat gives you the tools to clip and organize recipes from any website, the ones your family loves and that fit your dietary preferences and needs. And you can create a meal plan around your schedule. Then what happens is the Plan to Eat software automatically creates an organized shopping list based on your plan. So sign up for your free trial at plantoeat.com/timecrafting. That's plantoeat.com/timecrafting. The coupon will be automatically applied to your account and can be used when you're ready to subscribe. It's valid for new customers only. Give Plan to Eat a try today.
So that's kind of my personal story. If you want me to now go into the ill health effects of sitting or the positive effects of walking, I can tell me which path you want to go down.
Well, actually, what I'd like to go down, the path I'd like to go down first is, okay, so I have my office set up in a way, and I'm a big believer in productivity zones. So for example, I have my analog, and Austin Kleon talks about this. He's got his analog desk and his digital desk, right? And I think I've done the same thing in that I've got where my Varidesk is. That's where my computer is. It's where I've got my podcast microphone. All the technological stuff is basically on top of the Varidesk. And then next to that is kind of that long IKEA desk where I can sit and do planning. In fact, it's where I did my annual planning, because I start my year in September, and I basically sat at that desk almost the entire time. But then I've got my reading zone, and it's just a corner, like a tub chair that I sit in occasionally to read and stuff like that. So my question is obviously I like standing. I mean, my office, I've got myself enough room. I've got an Aeron chair for the times that I do sit. You can't possibly be standing and walking the entire day, do you? And if not, like, what do you like? How do you navigate that in your own, your work environment? Like, you must have, or maybe you don't, like some place to sit occasionally to kind of, get that rest and recuperation. And if so, do you have like kind of a trigger that says, okay, now it's time to get up, or now it's time to sit down? Do you have anything like that kind of, you use as a trigger or an activator?
Yeah, no, great question, Mike. And you asked it at the perfect time because I'm working on an article we're going to post on our site to answer just that question. The short answer is absolutely yes, you can walk all day. I've done it many times, but no, most of the time I don't. I do take sitting breaks. And the description you gave me of your office is very similar to mine. I've got a little lounge chair over in the corner. Now I'm working out of a home office, so I've got the luxury of a mixed use space here. My wife and I both have desks in what's sort of a medium sized living room area. We've got a little media center over in the corner at night. We watch the news or whatever. And I've got a little lounge chair. So when I'm reading, there are certain kinds of mental work that, and this is the answer to your question, this is what triggers me to say, I got to pause and sit down and read this thing, a legal contract, or if I'm going to read, a longer piece of fiction or something where it's going to be, 15, 20 minutes, and it requires some sort of inward focus. So I found there's sort of two different types of mental activity. There's creative and thinking out of the box, kind of, brainstorming kind of mental activity. And that is done, I find, and I think you would agree, be much better when you're up on your feet, moving around.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
then there's sort of inward focus kind of work. And for that work, I'll often pause the treadmill and stand, or I'll have a seat in a comfortable lounge chair and I'll read for a few minutes. So I've got a chair over in the corner. Then I also have what you described. I've got a sort of a standing height desk, and it's got I have a little perch lean-to stool, and I can use that on the treadmill as well. It's sort of a monopole that tilts over.
Oh, I think I've seen those before. It's the one. Yeah, I saw those at South by Southwest, I think a couple years ago. It's a weird kind of sitting device. It's like a lean. I've seen them before. Yeah.
Yeah, there's many versions now, and we've got some links to it on our site. We're going to be offering it as a promo for people because we get the same question all the time. So the one we're using is called the Ergo Stool. It's $99, but these things go up to $500 and even more. And you basically lean your butt back on it. It's sort of a perch. So about half your weight is still on your feet, but the other half's leaning back on your butt, as if you leaned up on a railing or on a counter height. It's that kind of a geometry. There's a company called Focal that has the high-end versions of these. There's the Very chair, and I can provide this info for your program notes later.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
Yeah, so you can actually lift one of those, pause the treadmill, and use it on the treadmill. Or I have what you described. I've got another desk that's just sort of a standing height desk, and it's got one of those stools next to it, so I can go. Sometimes I'll sit there. My wife uses that a lot. I don't consider it sitting; it's more of a perch. And then I have the comfortable lounge chair for certain kinds of reading and focus work. There's also certain phone calls where I want to really calm down and not get too stressed out over some big negotiation. I'll pause and take a seat when I'm talking to the phone. Most of my calls, though, I do walking. So the answer is there's been days, and this is a perfect example. It's I don't know what time zone you're in, but it's 1 p.m. here.
Same here. Yeah, we're in the same time zone.
So it's 1 o'clock. We've been on for almost 15 minutes, but I've already racked up. I started about 8 o'clock this morning. And I've taken 10,765 steps. I've walked a little over 4 miles, and I've burned off 242 calories. So that's really only half a day. Now, this was unusual because most of my day was phone calls and emails. So I find phone calls, emails, webinars, surfing the web, kind of catching up on some things you're looking at on the web or something. My LinkedIn page update. Those kinds of things are perfect at a treadmill desk, and I do almost all those activities. The trigger is, hey, I need to stop and focus on something internally, or there's times when, hey, I'm just tired, I want to take a break. But in the modern workplace, we sort of are at the place now where we're telling people, hey, we're sitting too much. Set a little reminder on your phone to prompt you every 20 minutes to get up and take a little walking break, or 40 minutes, whatever. People or every hour, people are taking a little walking break and they're walking a few minutes. So they're sitting for an hour, walking for a few minutes. And what my message to people is, Mike, is let's reverse that. We should be walking most of the day and taking occasional sitting breaks. So you're going to sit at lunch. You're going to sit when you take a a coffee break or an afternoon break. You're going to sit at a conference, probably if a group of people, although even conference rooms are being set up now at standing desks, but you're going to sit when you commute in your car. So people are never going to be short of sitting time. There's always going to be plenty of that. And I make an effort to do as much as I can. There have been days I've logged in 8 miles, but it depends. The triggers are the nature of the work that I'm doing. So if it's like this, we're gonna be together on this podcast for an hour, so I'll probably log in a couple of miles here, mile and a half just doing this. But then I might, again, it's the nature of the work that triggers me when I want to sit down. It's not being tired, because walking so slowly that you're never breaking a sweat, you're never really wearing yourself out. Those days I've done 6 or 8 miles, I don't feel like anything happened at all. It was just a normal day. It wasn't like a workout in the gym where you're tired and sweaty, you need to take a break. It's not that kind of in fact, I don't even consider this exercise, even though you get a lot of the benefits. This will help you lose weight. It'll help you control blood sugar level. It'll help a lot with controlling stress. You won't really improve your cardiovascular conditioning, but it will help avoid lumbar back problems, people having problems with lower back or tight necks or so forth. That's always largely a result of sitting in a right-angled contraption for too many hours at a time. So you get all these health and fitness benefits, but to me, the real benefits are, I'm alert and sharp in the afternoon. I'm not having that afternoon lull after lunch where you're kind of nodding off. You need to reach for an energy drink or something. I mean, those days are over for me. I just keep going like this, walking while I'm working, and it's been a big success. So that's my personal story. We found many of our customers reporting the same thing. I've got a guy over at the company Ring that makes that internet doorbell, and just got off the phone with him this morning, was giving him a little tech support using the app, and he's on there all day long. He loves it. And again, same thing. He's sitting down for conferences. He's sitting down for meetings. He's sitting down for lunch. He's sitting down, occasionally if he's got to go do something that's very detailed or focused. Certain kinds of spreadsheets, when you're really working on formulas in a spreadsheet or something, I'll hit the pause button, and stop for a while and just be standing. Or I'll just yank the laptop off the desk. I work off a laptop with an external screen. Sometimes I'll just take that and go over and sit down with it for a few minutes. So those are the triggers. It's the nature of the work.
So let's talk about the idea of walking, because I in a past episode I had Dr. Michael Breus on, and he talked about chronotypes and the power of when. And one of the things he talks about, and this is what a lot of fitness people say, it's the opposite of what they say, is like he's very much a believer in first thing in the morning. It's not about hitting the gym and going hard. It's about getting out, walking, getting those energy levels going, and then based on your chronotype, certain times of day are better for you to work out than others based on how much strength you have. So for me, I'm a wolf or a night owl. My better time of day to do working out is, like later in the day, like between 4 and 6 p.m. And actually, he even recommends that early risers, the people that are up at like 3:34 in the morning, should be at the same time zone, because of the fact that way they can stay up a little bit longer and be more social with people. So the walking is really intriguing to me. What does walking do? I mean, obviously you've got the walking on the treadmill on the inside, but what are the benefits that you found of walking when it comes to productivity through the research you've done, which has obviously been kind of furthered with the creation of the Unsit?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just echo what you said about the chronotypes. I didn't catch the name of the expert you had on that topic, but I firmly believe it, just from my personal anecdotal experience, and also having been a fitness instructor and trying to get people to stick to an exercise program. It's got to integrate with what works well in their lifestyle. And it's funny, I got a next door neighbor. We can see into each other's backyards. He's literally he literally rolls out of the house about 4 a.m. He's in the gym at 5. And he does a hard workout. This guy's a fitness maniac. And then he comes home about 6:30 when I'm just getting up. He's already been to the gym and cranked it out. And I'm more of the afternoon type like yourself. So finding that right time of day is important. And I just wanted to echo that. In terms of walking, I don't consider this a workout. I still do. And we still recommend that people maintain a regular fitness program, a few days a week of cardiovascular exercise, some strength training, little yoga, flexibility. You still want to do all that. This program is really about getting people out of their chair and up and moving. So the answer to your question, what walking does is, how long do we have here? I'm looking at one study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association that tracked the activity level of 3,247 people over 25 years. So this was a large population of people they looked at. And they found that people who had low activity levels, they measured 47% less on cognitive function tests. So what that spoke to is the power of walking to stimulate the brain. And we've got that posted on our website under the Why Unsit page. Right after it, we posted an MRI study of a person's brain. It's 2 MRIs, one with the person sitting, the second with the person after having walked for 20 minutes. And you see on that MRI, the portion of the brain that has to do with creativity and problem solving and happiness and satisfaction. That whole area, the bottom left quadrant of the brain looking down on it, is all lit up red and orange. And it's very exciting because it's a real scientific evidence of what this other study that I cited actually found in a large population of people, that just being active, not a hard workout, but just being up and moving actually stimulates the brain to be alert and aware and to think more and to solve problems better. So that's on the so we're very high on this whole idea of walking stimulates creativity and problem solving abilities. There's some other studies done like that. One at Texas A&M, they went into a call center and they studied 168 workers in a call center. Now, call centers are great places to look at productivity output because you can very easily measure how many calls the person is taking, what their satisfaction rate of the people they've talked to, and so forth. And call centers do that. They're very diligent in tracking stats of how productive their people are. And they found that the people who stood, not even walking, just on their feet, standing like your very desk for only 90 minutes a day, those people were 46% more productive than the people who sat all day. Now, that's only 90 minutes a day and just standing. They weren't even walking. So getting people up on your feet and moving, even if it's just, a little bit of standing, has a big impact on creativity and on productivity. Right, Mike, yeah, your question was, what does walking do for you? And it does a tremendous amount. But from a fitness point of view, weight loss, fitness level, or orthopedic problems are helped. All those health and fitness related things I consider to be positive, but they're really just a side effect, because the big thing that walking does is it helps with creativity and productivity, especially on the mental side. And one of the best studies that was done on this topic, and there's been numerous, but the one was published in the Experimental Journal of Psychology. It was done at Stanford University, and they took 180 people, divided into 3 groups of 60, and they were trying to measure creativity. And the way they measured creativity was with these little problem-solving questions. So there are specifically designed tests and quizzes that require creative problem-solving to excel at. So they applied this test to the 3 different groups. Group A was sitting. Group B was walking on a treadmill facing a white wall. And Group C was walking, but outdoors on the campus of Stanford University amongst the beautiful environment they have there. So they were trying to determine, does walking help creativity? If it's so, is it the outdoor environment, or is it just the movement of walking? So the results were quite impressive. The 2 groups that were walking scored 60% better on the creative problem-solving test. 60% improvement by simply walking over the group that was sitting. But Mike, among the 2 groups that were walking, the one outdoors and the one on the treadmill facing the white wall, there was no difference at all. They both had the same score, same results on the creative problem-solving test. So what that demonstrated was that it's the physical act of walking, up and moving your legs, circulating blood, that actually talks to the brain and stimulates the creative problem-solving parts of the brain that helps with these mental functions. And it does not really have much to do with the outdoor environment, although I'm sure that's good too. And I encourage people to get outdoors and walk, enjoy some fresh air and some outdoor environment. But it's very interesting that walking, the physical act of moving, actually engages the brain. And this makes sense if you look at it from an evolutionary biology point of view. Early humans were roaming around the plains of Africa trying to make sure they got enough food to eat that day and make sure that nobody ate them. So being up on your feet is when your brain was engaged and you were looking for opportunities and trying to avoid threats. And when the day was over, you sat down and rest, and your brain can now relax and start to go to sleep. And one of the things that Dr. Levine shows in his book, and some of these other studies show as well, is when you take the weight off of your feet, you sit down in a chair and relax, your brain gets a signal that there's no more threats, no more opportunities. You can relax and start to go to sleep. And your body starts to shut down and goes into a very slow metabolic rate, and brain function starts to relax and slow down as well. Whereas when you're up on your feet and moving, you get that signal that, hey, there's could be threats, there could be opportunities, we've got to engage and think, and that's why the brain functions so well. And we also posted on our website an MRI that shows a brain heated up and active after it's been walking for 20 minutes versus somebody seated. And that's up on the Why Unsit page as well. So the answer is creativity, problem solving. We think you're better off on your feet doing those things. And again, people like Steve Jobs was famous for taking his engineers out on walks to solve problems. I can list off a number of famous walks in history. Reagan and Gorbachev working on detente, and Reykjavik, Iceland, taking walks during negotiations to work out and solve problems. And we've all probably had the experience personally. If you're parenting some teenage kids and you're dealing with some of those challenges, going out for a walk to talk about problems and issues. You're stuck on a problem at work, go out for a walk, and sometimes the problem comes to you at that time. And so there's a real physiological reason why people often get solutions to problems during a walk.
So let's talk about how a person can get started with the idea of using a treadmill or walking at work and using a treadmill style desk. I mean, obviously you have one, and we'll put link to the shop page. It's the Walk One, I believe it's called, right?
Yeah, we named the treadmill itself the Walk One. Mm-hmm. Then we have the Walk One treadmill desk, which is we sell the combination. So for people like yourself who already have a standing solution, you can just add this. Or if you want to get the whole package, we can do that too.
But if somebody wants to get started, what are the steps they need to take? Because I think for a lot of people, there's going to be some, especially if they're working in an environment where there's a bunch of other people around and they have maybe a bit more control over their workspace, to have this treadmill thing, people are going to be. It might be something that they need to go in with the idea of, okay, I can do this, as opposed to this is a big jump from literally this is a big I'm going to take a stand, and this is a big change from my seated position to now I'm walking while I'm working. So how does someone get started and make this somewhat of a way of life?
Yeah, well, no, great question. And I think what you've done is the perfect starting point. The very desk, or just working with a standing desk for part of the day, is a great way to get started. You don't need to start out with a treadmill. I always encourage people to take little walking breaks. If you are stuck at a seated environment, maybe can you get out? Can you set your timer for every 45 minutes or an hour, and just prompt just take a quick walk around the building just to keep things moving. But I would encourage people to start there. Just get up and take walking breaks every 30 minutes would be even better. Getting started with a standing desk like you're doing, the Vera desk, that's maybe adjustable up and down, so you can stand for a few minutes and sit back down. There's also a variety of devices. I like the one that's called Fluid Stance. They're these little wobble boards that you stand on, but there's a number of versions of that, because your legs will get achy when you stand for after about 10 minutes. Your body's meant to be moving, not to be holding still. There's no circulation of blood when you're standing, so you start to have an achy sensation in your legs. So these little wobble boards can go good with a standing desk. And then after that, you can eventually graduate into adding a treadmill, but you got to have the physical space. Your desk has to have enough width underneath that. We have all those specs and dimensions on the product specs page of our website. And like you said, it may be that you're in a shared work environment where it's just not socially practical to have one guy standing up walking while everybody's sitting. In fact, we found that a number of times to be a real deterrent. We've done demos with these things where we brought the treadmill desk in as a shared desk environment, and you put it down there and nobody gets on it, nobody tries it out. Then eventually there's one social outcast, and he wanders over and gets going, and he kind of ends up taking the whole thing over, he or she. But it's awkward when you're the only person in the office who's standing there walking, everybody's sitting in a chair. Then what we found is if we put 2 or 3 units in, suddenly groups of people started doing it. So where nobody used it before with a single unit, when I had 3 units in the environment, suddenly everybody wanted to be on there, and they're walking and talking together. So solving for that social norm thing is a real challenge. And if you're the owner of the company, the CEO, put a room full of these things in there. If you're a receptionist or a worker bee in a large company, you don't have that kind of influence. I start with the Vera desk and maybe one of these standing boards. But at these newer, more progressive companies, this is very common now, Mike. In fact, Facebook, I saw when they built their new facility up in Menlo Park a few years ago, it was a review here in the LA Times on the architecture of the building. They brought Frank Gehry in to do the architecture, and I'm a big architecture buff, so I was really curious to see what he did up there. And they had some interior shots. Every single desk they installed was an adjustable height desk, every desk. So not everybody was using it at a standing height, but at least this company like Facebook had the forward-thinking ability to say, hey, this is how people are going to work in the future. So they gave everybody a standing height desk. It adjusts up and down. So I'd say step one is a Vera desk like you have. Maybe progress to a larger format standing desk, add a little wobble board or a something to get some leg movement in there. You can begin with just walking breaks throughout the day if you're stuck at a seated desk. And then if you've got the space and the ability to do it, add the treadmill in.
And so, Rob, but the other thing is how do people track this stuff? Like, I mean, we were talking during the episode about how you were able to track things. So as we do a quick rewind here, how are you able to do that?
Yeah, well, the answer is, first, let me echo your comment about the anti-fatigue mat. Those are an important starting point also. And I encourage people, if you're at a standing desk, get an anti-fatigue mat. So for tracking, a lot of people are already using the Fitbit or the Garmin, step trackers. Apple Health it counts steps. If you put the thing in your pocket, it uses the accelerometer in there to gather those steps. So people are already using these personal fitness tracking devices, and those are great. The problem with it when you use those on a treadmill desk, Mike, is that often your hands are sitting at your keyboard and your arms are not swinging. They're holding still, typing or writing. And those wrist-worn devices will not count your steps while your hands are at your keyboard. So we've developed our own app. It's called the Unsit app. You can get it in the App Store or in the Google Play Store if you've got an Android device. And what our app does is it syncs up, it pairs with the treadmill via Bluetooth, and it actually counts steps because our treadmill has weight sensors in the deck, and they can actually sense every time your foot strikes the deck. We also employed some really clever safety features where the treadmill stops automatically when you walk away. We're the only treadmill on the market that does that. But the app is counting steps. It also measures how much time you've been walking. It measures how many miles you've walked. And then we do something unique that nobody else does. Because of those weight sensors in the deck, Mike, we actually know when you're standing. And people who use a treadmill desk, you're standing probably half or 3/4 of the time. You actually don't walk that much. You spend a lot of time just standing there because again, the nature of the work you're doing. If it's detailed, fine manual dexterity work, writing or typing or spreadsheets, you'll pause the treadmill, you're just standing. And standing is good, and we want to measure that. So our treadmill knows when you're standing, and we count that as standing time. So we take your walking time and your standing time, we add those together, and we've created a new metric called total unsit time, or TUT for short. And that displays on the app as well. Then you can review that data over the past week or month or year. And we also send that up to the cloud. We have a web hosted application there, and it displays on the top. There's a little banner on the top of our website that shows the cumulative steps of all of our users. It's over 6 million steps now that all of our users have accumulated together. And then companies that want to incentivize people or different affinity groups want to form, they can set up their own little incentive programs and races using that web app. So that's the Unsit app. And then finally, if you are a Fitbit user or an Apple Health user, our data will sync into that app. So we have a sync capability to connect the data that we've collected in the Unsit app and sync it over to your Fitbit.
Great stuff to know, especially since I'm an Apple Watch user. So it's good that it syncs to Apple Health because I'm becoming a bit more attentive to that data for sure. Thanks, Rob.
Right. So you'll see if you have your iPhone sitting on your desk, it won't count your steps.
Right. Absolutely.
So this will sync. When you first download the app, the first thing it'll ask you is, do you want me to connect to Apple Health? You just say yes, and then boom, all the data syncs over there.
Awesome. Rob, this has been great. I mean, as somebody who is, I'm standing at my desk right now. I've got an anti-fatigue mat, which again, if you're getting a standing desk, no matter what, you have to get an anti-fatigue mat. Like you just need it because, but I'm moving around, and to have the next evolution. I have this Fit desk too, which is interesting as well. But it's not as, I mean, one of the things I do like about the idea of having a treadmill desk is there's a stability factor of you're the one in control. Whereas the Fit desk, while I like it, I find that it can be a bit wobbly and ergonomically it may not necessarily be the best solution. But this is something that I definitely want people to get behind. We're going to have you on a bonus episode to talk a bit more about those stories that you're talking about, the walking stories of how walking can and why long walks can really be beneficial. But but as we wrap up this episode, where can people find you and where can people learn more about your work?
Well, unsit.com, UNSIT.com is our website. We've got a page there called Why Unsit, which I've learned takes up a little bit of bandwidth, but there's some great content on there that talks about the studies related to health and fitness. It cites the studies I was talking about creativity and productivity. So we've got some filters on that page to look through some of the different articles that are on there. And then the product and the product specs are on the website as well. And we've got a list of customer success stories that are on there. It's all in the navigation bar on the top. Learn about what some of the other people who have bought our product, how they've employed it, where they are. And then on the About Us page, it describes my background and that of my partner, Paul Byrne. So you can read about how we got into this thing. So unsit.com. And then I'd recommend Dr. James Levine's book called Get Up. We have that on the shop page, or you can buy that on Amazon. So that's we've got a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page as well, but most of the content's up on the website.
Awesome, Rob. Thanks for joining me this week on the podcast.
Mike, thanks for having me, and keep up the great work.
Cheers. Big thanks to Rob for joining me this week on the podcast. You can find all the things we talked about for the show notes, in the show notes on the show at productivityist.com/podcast. Just look for the episode with Rob Jacobs as the guest. Of course, we've got some bonus episodes as well for our members. If you head over to patreon.com/productivityist, you can become a member and support the podcast. We talked about some other really cool stuff during that episode. So if you're not a member yet, you want to become one, head over to patreon.com/productivityist. And there's some more exciting news surrounding membership that's coming up in the next few weeks that I can't wait to share with you. So, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks to John Polster for producing the show. Thanks to my team for helping put it together. And thanks to you for listening. Until next time, I am Mike Vardy, the host of the Productivityist podcast and founder of Productivityist, reminding you to stop guessing and start going.